President Trump has put the finishing touches on his State of the Union speech. The anticipation for Republicans and the dreamers who will be in the audience.
If you don't have any money or anything, if everything's close together, that makes it better.
Another step in the city of San Diego's plan to help people experiencing homelessness. Details on the new resource center opening downtown.
The Super Blood Blue Moon is this celestial trifecta, 3 events happening all essentially at the same time.
And how San Diegans will get a good look at a once-in-a-generation lunar event. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. In about an hour, President Donald Trump will deliver his first State of the Union address. The economy, immigration, and the military are all expected to be major topics. House Speaker Paul Ryan will officially welcome the president into the House chamber, and he had this to say about the president's upcoming speech.
I'm excited to hear President Trump's State of the Union address tonight. And honestly, the State of the Union is looking up. It's really encouraging to be able to come and hear an upbeat tone at a State of the Union. This will be my 20th of these that I've sat in, and I've got to tell you, to be able to hear a State of the Union as bright as it is right now is something that's very encouraging. Wages are rising, economic confidence is coming back to America. Tax reform is now the law of the land, and it is playing a huge role in this transformation.
A San Diego woman is in Washington, D.C. now, waiting to watch the president's speech. Congressman Scott Peters invited Karen Bikina to be his guest on Capitol Hill. She's working on her dream to help underserved communities. She's one step closer to doing that, thanks to the DACA program.
And that's really my goal, is to ensure that healthcare access is provided to everyone who's low income and marginalized, and that's encompassing of all people. And hopefully, as a nurse practitioner, as a healthcare provider, I can ensure that there's public health interventions implemented to ensure there's community clinics in place, and there's programs, especially for people who are barely acclimating, refugee populations. I facilitated an after-school program in a very diverse community of City Heights, and a lot of the children suffered from a lot of trauma, a lot of health disparities. So really my goal would be to address some of those health inequities today.
A Republican House member from Arizona called on Capitol Police to arrest any undocumented immigrant who goes to the State of the Union speech. Capitol Police have not reacted to media questions for a statement on the congressman's request. The State of the Union serves as a milepost for a president's term in office and a moment to reflect on the administration's progress. The Associated Press put together this comparison between President Barack Obama's final year and President Trump's first, by the numbers. PBS NewsHour will have a special live coverage and analysis of the President's State of the Union address. It begins at 6 p.m. tonight here on KPBS. The city of San Diego is working to open a homeless resource center downtown. It will be located at an old skydiving facility near public transportation and other resources. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman has details.
That indoor skydiving logo won't be up for much longer. By July, this building behind me will serve as the focal point for people to get help experiencing homelessness.
It's for all homeless populations, including those that are at risk of becoming homeless.
The city says the building's owner gave them a good deal. The 26,000 square foot building was appraised as high as $22 million. The city is getting it for $7.3 million.
They definitely are supportive of the city's efforts to provide additional resources for homeless individuals.
The building is being paid for with federal community development block grants. Officially named the Housing Navigation Center for Homeless Services, it will cost the city $1.5 million to operate annually.
There won't actually be any provision of meals. Okay. There won't be any beds or showers. It's meant to be that beginning point, that starting point for an individual. They most likely will be then referred to another more appropriate program.
The city plans to keep the new center open for at least 5 years.
You have to be able to get there, for one thing.
Philip Bates says he's been homeless for the last year.
If you don't have any money or anything, if everything's close together, that makes it better.
Bates believes putting resources under one roof will help.
Almost everywhere you go, they'll give you a sheet that gives you multiple, like a whole sheet full of different spots. There's a lot of different resource centers.
The building still has functional skydiving air tubes and equipment, but the city says they plan on shutting them down. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
While the city will own the property, they will not run the daily operations. Starting next month, they will begin accepting proposals from service providers. A report on the shortcomings of San Diego's Fire Rescue Department was presented to the City Council today. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the report is already nearly a year old.
San Diego's Fire Rescue Department has long been failing to meet the city's emergency response time goals. The latest report was completed in February last year. It took 11 months for it to get a full public hearing at the City Council. The report says the solution to slow response times is simply to build more fire stations. This has been known for many years, but a city chronically short on cash has been unable to pay for them. Councilman David Alvarez was part of a committee that reviewed a 2010 study on fire response times. He says progress has been too slow.
We've had this discussion 7 years ago, and now we're having this discussion again, and we'll be having it again 7 years from now because we might not have made any progress. And that's sort of the part that is a little bit frustrating.
Between finding land for a fire station, designing the building, environmental review, and construction, getting a fire station built can take around 5 years. And that's if the city has the money to pay for all of those things. The upcoming budget process will determine how much the city will dedicate to improving its fire response times in the next fiscal year. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
The public will have an opportunity tonight to voice opinions on a master plan to upgrade Palomar Airport in Carlsbad. KPBS North County reporter Allison St. John says the master plan will affect how the airport expands in the next 20 years.
Palomar Airport is an aviation hub for North County, but neighboring residents are very concerned about how it'll grow. The runway is surrounded by housing and other development, and planes usually fly down the coast and circle inland to land. The runway is less than 5,000 feet, too short for most commercial planes, but large private corporate jets do fly in and out, and traffic is on the increase. The airport belongs to the County of San Diego, which has already invested millions of dollars in building a terminal there and improving facilities for aviation. Tonight's meeting's to review a draft environmental impact report on the proposed master plan, which includes options to lengthen the runway by either 200 or 800 feet. The county says this would not mean bigger aircraft landing, but it would mean aircraft could take off with more fuel, and so they could fly further. Nearby residents worry about increasing noise, but supporters of the airport say it's a vital economic driver, bringing millions of dollars to the region and creating more jobs. Tonight's meeting is at 6 p.m. at the Holiday Inn in Carlsbad. Allison St. John in the North County KPBS Bureau.
The baseball executive who put together the Padres' 1998 World Series team has passed away. Kevin Towers was battling a form of thyroid cancer over the past year. He was 56. Towers served as the Padres' general manager from 1995 to 2009. The team won a National League championship in 1998, just weeks before voters approved a ballot measure funding the construction of Petco Park. Tomorrow is the deadline to enroll in Covered California. The recently passed federal tax reform bill eliminated the penalty, but that change doesn't take effect until next year. Therefore, people who don't enroll in a health plan by this year's deadline will face a tax penalty of at least 2.5% of their household income. Covered California officials say enrollment is up. A new report finds California is on track to have 1.5 million electric vehicles on the road in 2025. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson has details.
California's ambitious goal of putting hundreds of thousands more electric vehicles on the road is possible. A new study by Beacon Economics and the nonpartisan group Next 10 finds the state is adding zero-emission vehicles quickly. Market share for zero-emission vehicles is already over 4% this year. That's a big jump after hovering near 3% for the past several years. Sales have also jumped steadily. Next 10 founder Noel Perry says there are already more than 300,000 EVs on California roads. Current projections put sales at more than 3 million vehicles by 2025. Perry says reaching the state's 1.5 million vehicle goal by 2025 is doable, but he says the state's vehicle charging infrastructure needs a serious upgrade.
Right now, we have about 16,500 public and non-residential private sector charging outlets, and that's more than any other state. However, if you look at the ratio between the number of charging stations to the number of ZEVs, and we score very, very low compared to other states in the country.
Perry says the governor is also pushing for 5 million electric vehicles by 2030, and he says the findings of the Next 10 study suggest that is reachable. Perry expects more and more people to turn to electric-powered transportation. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
The North County Transit District is getting $10.5 million from the recent state gas tax increase to purchase new low-emission trains for its coaster system. The state grant, which was announced today, will cover roughly a fifth of the train's total cost. The gas tax and vehicle fee increase was approved by state lawmakers last year and is expected to provide $54 billion in new transportation funding over the next decade. Get up before sunrise tomorrow morning and you'll see something that hasn't happened in 35 years. San Diego and much of the western U.S. will be in view of the super blue blood moon. The phenomenon happens when a new moon, supermoon, and lunar eclipse happen at the same time. When most of us are looking at the moon, NASA scientists will use the event to gather new information from the moon's surface.
For the moon, it's not only going to be changing color, but it's also going to be changing temperature. It's going from the oven of being in direct sunlight into the Earth's shadow, which is like going into the freezer. And so that dramatic temperature change can be measured by instruments either on the Earth or an orbiting spacecraft. And so that temperature change tells us something about the particle size of the surface of the moon. Because there's no atmosphere, it cools very quickly, and so that temperature change is pretty dramatic and, again, reflects what's on the surface.
The next super blue blood moon will be in 2037. NASA will live stream the event starting at 2:30 a.m. Totality is expected to last for about an hour. San Diego will have clear skies for those up early to see the moon, and it will be another warm day. Erin Galandra has more in tonight's forecast.
I'm sure you noticed today not nearly as windy as it was yesterday. Those Santa Ana winds, they have died down. Still a bit breezy at times, but nothing like we saw over the weekend. What you did notice also is some clouds. We have some high clouds lingering, so a bit cloudy out there today. To the north of us, we're seeing just a couple of showers through places like Fresno, just very spotty, but Southern California is staying dry, and in fact, we don't expect to see any kind of precipitation here until February at least. So tonight, dry, a moonlit sky, plenty of stars and a blue moon to check out. 54 degrees for the temperature. Across the county, Borrego Springs 47, Ramona 41, and Alpine 45 degrees. In Chula Vista 53 for the low, Oceanside 43 degrees. Now on Wednesday, it's going to be another nice day, not as warm as it has been, so cooling down slightly, but still above average temperatures, staying dry with plenty of sunshine, and that's really how it's going to be in the southwest for quite some time. Temperatures still warm in Poway, 85, Ramona 82, Borrego Springs up to 84 degrees. In San Diego, comfortable, 75 degrees, although we should be at 65 this time of year. We are 10 degrees above average, but still pretty pleasant conditions. We have a big ridge in the jet stream that's allowing our nice warm air to flow to the north, but other than that, things are pretty quiet around here. On the East Coast, well, a big dip in the jet stream. If you're heading to the Super Bowl this weekend, dress warmly. We're talking frigid temperatures in the single digits, so it's going to be awfully chilly. Luckily, they're playing in a dome. Not that those teams are not used to that cold air, but still. So on Wednesday here in the coast, 75 degrees, getting slightly cooler, but really staying in those mid to low 70s throughout the week. Inland, we're in the 80s all week long. Very warm with some sunshine, and in the mountains in the 60s, so much more mild conditions there. And in the deserts, we're in the 80s with plenty of sun. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra. Ebony, back to you.
San Diego's large refugee population means a lot of foreign students sitting in English-speaking classrooms. KPBS reporter Taryn Minto says a local nonprofit at one school helps refugee children bridge that learning gap. But the group says it needs help too.
What letter do you think Mitten starts with?
San Diego Refugee Tutoring pairs volunteer adults with refugee students at a school in San Diego's City Heights neighborhood. Co-founder Melissa Phillips says the program is one of the few free and regular resources the kids have. But the key is providing a consistent tutor. She says 50 to 80% more kids are attending this year, but the number of volunteers hasn't kept up.
Because we do one-on-one tutoring, that means a really big jump, because that means we need another 50 adults weekly that can come and volunteer.
Tutors must pass a background check and attend a 1-hour orientation. There are 3 scheduled for next month. Taryn Minto, KPBS News.
California lawmakers want to save net neutrality. They're crafting legislation that would push back on the latest FCC ruling from the Trump administration. As data theft takes advantage of more people, cybersecurity experts want others to take steps to protect personal information and devices. KQED Newsroom Marissa Lagos talks to Michelle Dinity. She's the Chief Privacy Officer for Cisco.
I know you're a mom and you have teenage kids, so you're really in this. I have very young kids. I'm curious how you think people should be approaching this with their children. And I'm thinking about, their access to the internet, but also you see people who put their entire kids' lives on social media.
Yes. I mean, if this was vodka, I'd be drinking it in the morning. Yes, you want to really think about starting to talk to your kids as soon as they're talking to you, because you're seeing children in restaurants as young as 1 and 2 swiping and doing things.
And they're digital natives. It's like they understand these devices better than we do sometimes.
They understand the technology and the fun and games. They don't have your judgment. So what I always say to parents is, yes, it's overwhelming. The teens in particular, they change their passwords like they change their minds. Their passwords. I wish they changed their passwords that often. They change the applications that they're playing with like they change their mind. And so you may not be able to keep up with the latest and the greatest cool thing, but you can say things like, did you know that there are certain things you can never change? Your fingerprints, for example. Children as young as 5 years old, I've gone into their classrooms and said, this is you all the time. I was born with a different name. I assumed a different name as I grew up and grew older. So some stories change and some stay the same. And so you start, that's all the little ones need. When you get to the age, that critical age, when they're still speaking to you, but almost not, so your tweens and teens, that's when you really want to dig in on ethics conversations and use items in the news. So talk about, Kamala Harris, when she was here as our AG in California, she really went on a mission to look at predators online, what does it mean to take selfies and nudes and all these things that kids think are private? That's happening to kids as young as 11 and 12. Wow. So don't think you can wait till high school to tackle some of these morality and ethics issues. And then please talk to your fellow parents and let them know that a picture of your child with the name, with a picture of your car and the license plate in front of the school, probably way over budget on the data.
Yeah, those are hard conversations. I want to turn to another sort of difficult conversation we've been having as a society, which is this Me Too movement, talking about women. I feel like the tech industry, you know, this issue's been percolating around diversity and gender, but it hasn't maybe come to the surface quite as much as it has in, say, entertainment and other industries. What's it like being a woman in tech, and do you think that Silicon Valley needs to have more of a Me Too moment?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I won't get too crazy, but I put a hashtag up when that whole came out.
I mean, most of us did, right? That's why it's so...
I know one woman who said that she's never had any sort of discriminatory behavior, we'll put it that way, mildly. And I've been in tech, in different segments of tech for the last 30 years. I think Silicon Valley is good and ready to out not just the bad guys, because quite honestly, they're open secrets. Who I really want to out in Silicon Valley are the men who are enablers, the men who give us a voice at the table. I have a great boss, and I probably shouldn't say it on TV. It's like the ultimate brown-nose moment. But John Stewart is the Chief Trust Officer for Cisco, and I tell you what, he's an advocate for women. He's an advocate for people from different economic backgrounds. And I think what we hope to do is, if you look at the percentage of men in control, 97% of them white males.
Right.
If every one of them could be turned into an enabler, this would not be a generation by the time your children and mine got to be our age. So don't focus so much on the bad stuff.
Right.
Enable the enablers.
Totally. I think that's something everybody's talking about.
Yeah.
Michelle Dennedy, thank you so much for coming in tonight.
Thank you. It goes by fast with you. You're really great.
You can see more of that interview on kqed.org.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Coming up at 6, special live coverage of the President's State of the Union address, followed by the Democratic response after the nightly business report on KPBS.
The mayor of San Juan, the capital of Puerto Rico, will be in the audience tonight at the State of the Union address. Her country, a U.S. territory, is still without power 4 months after Hurricane Maria. And as AP reporter Robert Bumstead reports, those who have evacuated to the mainland face an uncertain future.
It is far from the place they left a month ago in both distance and culture. But for husband and wife Angie Melendez and Fernando Moyet, this small hotel room in Brooklyn is their family's best shot at a future after their home near Puerto Rico's capital was destroyed by Hurricane Maria. After the hurricane hit, they were forced to sleep for almost a month in their garage. They were given a flight to the mainland by a local charity. They had just 1 day's notice and 3 suitcases to pack.
3 maletas con sueño, 3 maletas de desesperación, 3 maletas de ayuda, de ayúdame, de socorro.
Across New York and around the U.S., many Puerto Ricans are finding themselves adrift because of the September 20th hurricane. Maria destroyed more than 70,000 homes and damaged another 300,000. Many areas are still without power, and many businesses have closed. The result has been a mass exodus to the mainland. According to FEMA, there are nearly 4,000 families receiving hotel assistance from the agency across 42 states because their homes are too damaged to occupy.
I adopted 63 families.
Many families are relying on volunteers like Sonia Velasquez to navigate the complicated network of benefits. FEMA has set a March 20th deadline for the program to end, and many families say they can't afford temporary housing without assistance. Velasquez says many families don't know where they'll end up next.
It frustrates me that they are misinformed, right? It frustrates me that there is not a plan, a long-term plan for them.
Across town in Queens, Miguel Rosado has a binder full of pictures documenting the devastation in his hometown of San Juan. He's searching for a permanent home on the mainland for himself, his 10-year-old daughter, and 19-year-old adopted son.
Hay estrés, muy estresante, sinceramente. Es como que
Me siento con un estrés brutal porque no es un lugar seguro. Sé que en cualquier momento me van a decir lo mismo, vete.
According to a study by the Center for Puerto Rican Studies at Hunter College, more than 200,000 Puerto Ricans could move to the U.S. mainland over the next 12 months. The greatest number are expected to settle in Florida. Leslie Rivera from the central town of Caguas has been shuffling among hotels in Tampa since December with her 3 kids. She was approved for subsidized housing and expects to be settled soon, but tasked with finding a job and raising 3 kids in an unfamiliar place, the challenges won't end there.
Si yo estuviera sola, pues yo lucho, pero yo tengo estos 3 que son el ejemplo mío.
Robert Bumstead, Associated Press.
Now here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, on a mission to empower victims of sexual assault, Rose McGowan shines a light on her Me Too story in a new TV series, Citizens Rose. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.